We have a new junior heavyweight champion. A former women's champion has left the company. The U.S. version of Fantasticamania is upon us, and we begin what's going to be a 2-week preview of the most wonderful time of the year, the G1 Climax 34 tournament. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style. We're back here looking forward to a big week ahead and the G1 Climax tournament. We're looking back. It's been almost a week since the last New Japan show, Jeremy, but there were some real surprises between that and now. We had some behind the scenes and some in front of them. I was shocked and thrilled, actually, to see the new junior heavyweight champ. I thought it was a pretty good show
Sure.
at Tokyo Budokan last week. And overall, it's been what we thought would be a quiet week. That's the most dangerous thing we do is think it's going to be a quiet week. We end up with a lot of news to talk about. So, now G1 field is set. How you feeling?
It feels like this week has been a roller coaster trying to navigate New Japan in our lives, both behind the scenes and everything.
Yeah.
So just trying to figure out what we're going to talk about this week. It's just been, we got to fit in Stephanie Vaquer. How much G1 do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? Is it go time? It's been a lot. And I was telling you privately that I didn't even know where to start with these block layouts and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I started doing one, and it was like, I couldn't stop, man. I couldn't stop just thinking about you could do this and you could do this. And it was the Charlie from the Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the board. But instead of with my iPad and the pencil with the block, and I'm just crossing out the wins and the losses and doing the mad scramble before I do the post wrestling and the sport of pro wrestling, Chris Samsa block plays before I humiliate myself completely.
Well, let's get into this. So that show at Tokyo Budokan, we will discuss, but that was 6 days ago. And I think everybody kind of knows it's worth talking about, but I think everybody knows the news from that one. Stephanie Vaquer, this is much more contemporary. Stephanie Vaquer suddenly is leaving CMLL and New Japan both at the same time, not finishing out her dates at all, and seems to have signed directly with WWE. And from all indications, she's headed for NXT, as Ava Raine, Shawn Michaels both tweeting about it. So this comes as absolutely zero surprise that Stephanie is going to one of the big ones. We've said for weeks and weeks, months really, that someone's going to snap this woman up, and it's either going to be Paul or Tony, and we didn't know which it was going to be. I was a little surprised, Jeremy, that it happened with absolutely zero notice. I thought there would be a little bit more of a lead time that she would finish out her dates. As it is, not appearing at Fantasticamania, not appearing on several shows that she was booked on. She is just headed to Orlando.
We're all in. Nope. He gone. I agree with everyone that there was probably a better way to handle her exit out of the business with CMLL and with AEW. AEW didn't sign her, and that's on AEW, number one. If they wanted to use her more, they signed everybody, and if she wasn't an urgent sign for them, that is 1,000% on them. I will say this, as unpopular of an opinion that this may be, I can't think of another female wrestler from Mexico or South America in general that has been now able to punch their ticket so thoroughly that they will never need to rely on CMLL or AAA ever again and has outkicked them. So if she ever goes back, it'll be on her terms. And that is a very valuable thing to have as a wrestler. Her stock has risen so thoroughly that she will not need to rely on any of those other smaller promotions in Mexico or otherwise. And you can't say that about anybody else. So she played her card right. When we talk about having wrestlers getting the bag and having to make a tough decision where, like you're going to be leaving people hanging. And, we juggle we are fans of this wrestler and this wrestler cares about us, right? But there comes a point where they're going to have to make a decision like this, and they're going to have to say, like, will this come at a cost of the fans that, like, a number of fans that'll never come back? And I say, if you were fans of this wrestler when they made this decision, you'll probably be fans of them afterwards because this was business, not their performance. And I think she has all the talent in the world, one of the best promotions in the world, federations, whatever you want to call it, best companies for wrestling, came knocking at her door, offered her a contract, and now she has an opportunity. And I think in 2 years, she's going to light the world on fire in WWE.
Yeah, and we're looking at some of the comments here already. Colin, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here with us. So Venkin, also, I'm glad you're here, Venkin. And Venkin mentions this. This is another get because remember, Julia is on the way to NXT as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Venkin mentions Julia and Vaquer versus the PC girls is going to hit different. Yeah, it definitely will. She checks a lot of boxes for WWE, and I mean, she's super talented, no question about that. She has a very marketable look, no question about that either. And the other thing is, that WWE would love to continue to tap in to the Hispanic market. She's Chilean, and speaks Spanish fluently and all that. We don't know about how she does with English, but they'll work on that for sure. And it's just somebody who's very, very marketable. And you think about it in a couple of years. I don't really see a reason why she can't be up there on the main roster with all of the top women in WWE. We're talking, is she a possible, a candidate for a major match at WrestleMania? Hell yeah, she is. I mean, what's the ceiling on Stephanie Vaquer? I haven't seen it yet. It seems like every time I see her, she's better. And, if she goes over to the WWE, there are a lot of good women she can work with. There is a structure there that can market her. And I understand the decision, even if it bothers me a little bit that I won't be seeing her in Arena Mexico and in Japan anymore.
I'm missing her this week at CMLL, Fantasticamania. I'm really looking forward to that match.
Sure.
But I've seen her live a couple of times. She's been to San Jose before. I know she's the goods. It's like, it wasn't that I missed like my one and only opportunity to see her at an inexpensive price or anything like that. No, I'm bummed because she's good and it made a good card better. I'm kind of whatever about the replacement match, but they made an effort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everybody did what they had to do in the situation for themselves. And honestly, beyond the conversation of Vaquer going to WWE, I don't think this really changes any fan's life at all. You know what I mean? Like, we're all going to be okay in a couple of days that there's no more opportunity of Stephanie Vaquer in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It will be okay because she's not gone forever.
It's still an exciting time because we have seen women like Reina Isis and Zeusis and Uvia and all that come up through the Mexican system, similar to how Stephanie did, and not exactly the same way, but they have really blossomed, prospered. The improvement is spectacular. I mean, I remember pre-pandemic that watching Arena Mexico, the women's match was more to be tolerated than it was to be enjoyed. And if you go back when, it was like Dolly's and some of these others, they weren't terrible, but it wasn't quite there. And now you're seeing the women featured in major matches in Mexico City. And it's not only Vaquer. It's important to note, by the way, that this relationship with CMLL and New Japan is open, and that there are a lot of good women working over there right now that are very talented. And I mentioned a few just a little while ago. Those aren't the only three. And if this era, remember, they headlined a show at Arena Mexico, not just headlined. There was an entire women's show at Arena Mexico earlier this year that Vaquer was not on. She was in Japan. She was wrestling in Japan at the time. So there are other women that can come over from New Japan that are very talented. We've seen some of them already. And I think there's going to be a pipeline now. And if nothing else, these women succeeding and being in prominent spots can inspire other girls that are thinking about, well, maybe I can be a wrestler and be in a major match at Arena Mexico, and maybe we'll get a bit of the next generation coming in here soon. I don't see why not. And I think Vaquer can end up being one of those people that was a real catalyst for that, all of which could end up benefiting New Japan, because those women will be working somewhere, or Bushi Road, Stardom, this whole cooperative thing going on.
There is a spot to fill, and there are hungry people there. I laughed because the video or footage or clips or whatever of Vaquer applying for WWE tryout in 2019 popped up, and everyone's like, oh, they didn't want her then and they want her now. Like, yeah, 5 years later, she put in a ton of work. She improved dramatically. She was given a platform by another promotion in which they showed video packages, and on a silver platter, they were delivered to WWE and said, yes, sure, a Latina star wrestler. Let's go with that. And I know that there are people that are immediately thinking she's going to be put in the LWO or one of these other, like, Legado de Fantasma or whatever. It's like, you know what? You are going to have these interactions. And you know why you're going to have these interactions? To immediately elevate her above them. Like, you have it, you show the pecking order, you have her defeat them, and then you're just like, you now realize that this is not a person that is just like pigeonhole into like a spot. They are going to build around her. I consider her like Ilya Dragunov in a lot of ways. It's like someone unconventional as a wrestler that when you put them in the ring, you can make good things happen and create matches with other wrestlers because they are malleable, and because what they can do, you can make that work with other talents on the roster.
And then there, like I said, with Julia coming over from Marty Gold, when all that's all said, that is a hell of a roster to work with. Roxanne Perez, and I mean, I know Lola Vice is on the way up, and I mean, there's some promising stuff going on over there right now.
There is so much more opportunity to grow and thrive the women's division in WWE through CMLL, through Stardom, through Marigold, through all of these places. And it's like WWE doesn't care. They're going to go after them. And so we have been aware, since we started this podcast, that a lot of the very good talents are not going to be here forever. And it's part of the enjoyment of watching them grow and cultivate and see them become so undeniable that a greater population wants to like talk, see them, and pay money to watch them go.
And let's remember, everybody, seriously, that's always been the case. Very, very few foreign talents stay for years and years and years and years. I'm not saying none, but they go back and forth. They come and they go. That is part of being foreign talent in Japanese wrestling. It always has been. So I know I would love to watch Kenny Omega back in New Japan as well. I'd love to see Kenny Omega anywhere for that matter. I hope he gets better. But I would love to see some of those other guys that were there for a long time come back. I wish Kota Ibushi were still Kota Ibushi. I wish Okada was still around. Yes, but people come and people go. Jay White, God, geez, man, I wish Jay White was back. But this is how this goes. You do some time over there and you come back. AJ came and left. Will came and left. Ricochet came and left, for that matter. He was in New Japan for a while. Don't forget that. Kyle O'Reilly. There have been great talent over the years, and now it's we're just kind of So this whole thing about the economy mattered because Okada left. That was an outlier, like a number one star leaving. That was the real outlier. People like Ospreay leaving or Vaquer leaving and all that. Julia is a bit of unusual, but that type of thing, foreign stars coming and going, it's the way of the world.
It's like you got Willow for this New Japan show. I fully expect, as long as Mercedes has that strong title, she's going to be on those New Japan shows. She's not going to be working Saturday night for AEW. She'll probably be on that Capital Collision. I'm not reporting this or anything like that, but it's a strong possibility that if you're going to have one AEW talent and it's not Kingston and it's not Moxley at this point, you may as well be putting Mercedes Moné on there, and they may end up doing a CMLL championship match. Giving her a third title. to walk around with.
Mercedes is a strong champion because she sells tickets, and a little doubt as to that. Venkin does mention, I mentioned AJ, and he's back this weekend. You're right. He's coming back for the Noah show. He's going to wrestle there. That was pretty crazy. And of course, Io is back. Io this weekend is going back to Japan to wrestle Utami Hayashishita in the Marigold pay-per-view. And let's see, Colin just says Okada could be doing with being back in New Japan. His AEW run has been woeful so far, in his opinion, of course. And Benkin just mentions Mercedes triple belts. Maybe so. She's pretty well decorated already. So
they're going to have a strong women's program for the AEW title. So in order to make Mercedes feel special and different, I expect her to be decorated in multiple titles from multiple promotions. And I don't think we're stopping with 2.
And Venkin mentioned Sari is already taking shots at Io. Oh, I would. That's another one I would. Good Lord, Sari and Io. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, there you go. So Stephanie Vaquer gone, and we're going to talk about Fantasticamania and who's replacing her in that card. That's all coming up. Next, Jeremy, do we want to just go ahead and talk about this show back in the Budokan, or do you want to go over something else first?
Why don't you do a little spiel about Fight Game Media while I pull up the prompt? We'll get that out of the way, the likes, subscriptions, all that kind of thing, and I'm going to get the rest of this thing up.
Okay, so for Fight Game Media, we of course have this YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Make sure that you do that. We have a lot of great programming on this channel. We have the Dynamite show that's right after Dynamite. Our sibling show is Power Bombshells on Sundays at 1 Eastern, 1 o'clock Eastern. That's Sam and Mel. I just want to put them over for a moment because this past weekend they had a really interesting conversation on there about the twists and turns of this Dominic Mysterio, Liv Morgan thing, and had a really interesting perspective on how that can relate to the Vince McMahon lawsuit. And they really put it in terms that I think has made it really fascinating and a little eerie sometimes. And they really brought that home. So again, it's a different perspective on wrestling. They're super smart, and they really bring up some interesting points that aren't always brought up in a rather male-dominated commentary industry. So helpful perspective from Power Bombshells. The Dynamite show is fabulous at deconstructing the AEW programming, and make sure you check that out. And we, of course, have the podcast feed, 5-Star Joshi show, Garrett Gonzalez's shows. There's the Wrap, which breaks down all of WWE in a really fun, entertaining way, and just a lot of good stuff on there. And believe me, you're going to need the 5-Star Joshi show, folks, because there's some huge things going on in that industry. So anyway, check that out. Like, subscribe, leave us reviews.
Look at you. I was just going to have you kill some time before I pulled up the actual prompt, but you did the whole thing all by yourself, right off the top of your head. I tip my cap to you, sir. The only thing I wanted to add was Paul Fontaine did a solo show last night.
I'm sorry, Paul. Yes,
and best wishes to Jeff Hawkins. He wasn't able to make the show, and it seems like he is a little under the weather and on the mend. So we wish the best to both of them. And so we're getting to New Japan Soul. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, let's do that from Tokyo Budokan here. So
top
got some information.
There's nothing so crazy that we have to start at the bottom, right?
No, we can start up top. I did want to mention Tokyo Budokan. Now, this is a building that is in the Adachi neighborhood, and it has some significance because that's where Bushi and Naito are from. That's where they grew up, the Adachi neighborhood of Tokyo. But it's not a place where New Japan has come in very often. In fact, according to records, this is the last time the company was there was 2002. And it was a show in which Yuji Nagata won the IWGP title from Tadao Yasuda. And I looked at this card, and they even had a little video package where Naito mentioned being in the crowd for it. Tanahashi was in the third match on the card. That's how long ago this was. Tanahashi wasn't even a star yet. On the third match of the card against Tatsutoshi Goto. Not Hiroki, Tatsutoshi Goto. Tenzan was in it. He was in a 20-minute draw with Manabu Nakanishi on that card, and Geto and Jado were in a mid-card trios match, just to give you an idea of how long ago that was. It was back before Tanahashi was indeed the ace. So a cool-looking building, I thought. Holds about 4,000 people. but not a place where New Japan comes very often. So Naito and Bushi were very excited. Bushi has his little fried chicken restaurant. And I do mean little. It's just basically a walk-up counter, like a lot of restaurants are in Japan, where you just kind of walk up to a window and order through there. There's no seating and things. But Bushi has his karage place, and Naito grew up in the area, so a chance to go back there for the homecoming. But
I have my own little liner note for this.
What's that?
Named the title of the show "Doki Comes Alive" because it reminded me of Frampton Come Alive.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and here we go with this. So the main event of the show was not the LIJ Homecoming, though. It was an IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match, and it was El Desperado defending against DOUKI. And DOUKI had new music. He had a new entrance video, so a little repackaging here. Certainly the same gimmick. He has the same outfit and things, but the music is a little bit better. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Once the match started, Desperado started with some submission work. He worked on DOUKI's leg and knee. Of course, that works for the stretch muffler hold that he does. DOUKI's offense centered around Desperado's neck, including hitting a tope suicida into a swing DDT on the outside that looked fantastic. A lot of people try that move. Not everybody hits it. DOUKI nailed it there. The other thing I wanted to mention here, Jeremy, was TJP was on commentary for this one and did a hell of a good job. He and Chris Charlton were on the call for this once TJP was done with his early in the card preview tag match. And TJP really broke down a lot of the strategies, a lot of why guys are doing things to set up things later in the match, and did a hell of a job breaking it down. I thought that he and Chris were excellent on this show. Anyway, it built like it usually does, in that the big moves start coming around and guys start trying to hit their finishers. But in the end, DOUKI got the suplex de la Luna and hit it. And when they hit it, you could even see the crowd waiting for Desperado to kick out of it. And he didn't. And it was a 1, 2, 3. And you can see and hear the surprise in the crowd. Because they were ready to do the whole, oh, and applaud when Desperado got the shoulder up, because you just assume he would. When that referee hit 3, the whole place like, oh my God, wow. And a lot of people were absolutely shocked. Again, I was surprised, but not disappointed. I've been banging the drum for both of these guys here for a long time. I think DOUKI's terrific. A lot of respect for how he got to New Japan in the first place, which was filling in for Desperado and Super Juniors when Jun Kasai broke Desperado's jaw. But here it is. DOUKI is the junior heavyweight champion. It was kind of a good feeling thing. The crowd was genuinely happy for him, I felt. The other side of this is it's another one and done for Desperado winning the junior heavyweight title. So that's 2 straight times he's won the title and then failed to defend it. So that's something that they're bringing up also. Desperado brought it up. They mentioned it in commentary. So there's something going on here where Desperado's got to get this thing back and then hold it, right? I mean, that's the next step for Despe. But again, one and done. DOUKI's the junior heavyweight champion.
I was absolutely delighted by this. Just the whole. Okay, so here's the mental playback for me of watching the finish of this match. Suplex de la Luna. Suplex de la Luna. And it's just like, that was it. And that move is so protected. Like, I don't see people kicking out of that. And you know what I think about it? The move is really freaking awesome. It's like,
it is.
Full Nelson and then does the German suplex for the pin. And you're just like,
well, yeah, and it's a delayed German, so it differentiates it from the Dragon suplex, which is the full Nelson suplex. He hoists it up, holds it, then bends back with the bridge. It looks great.
It's such like a breathtaking move. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's like you hold your breath when he hits it, and you're just like, and then you just like, oh man, and like I didn't think he was gonna win this match, I watch it. I was able to keep spoiler free from this entire thing, but I went like the entire day without watching it. For whatever reason, I was able to like keep away from everything. I watched him like, son of a bitch. And then I thought back to a conversation that you and I had where I was like, I wasn't sure that Despy was going to win the best of the Super Juniors because he had the festival and they don't like to give you all of this, like all these great things. great. And I was right, except I had to wait 19 days. They took it away 19 days later.
I'm pretty sure I was right. I said
no,
Desperado.
but you
was
know what
gonna
I'm
win
saying.
Super
You know what I'm
Juniors.
saying.
I predicted that correctly.
You did predict it, did you?
No, pardon me. I threw my shoulder out, patting myself on the back there. Pardon me.
I honestly didn't think either of us totally predicted DOUKI winning this, although we probably should have. But no, we had this conversation, and I just felt like there was going to come a very quick time where Despy was going to get the rug pulled out from him. Like this whole, like, everything is great for Desperado. Everything. He's got the title. He won the best of the Super Juniors. He has this whole festival. And then he's got this ego of, I'm going to pick my challenger. And he picks his challenger, and the challenger just takes the title from him. And it's just one of those, like, and then comes the fall kind of thing. And that's kind of where I felt like it was going with him, is that, like, everything was going too well for him and something was going to go wrong. And I thought it was going to happen at Best of Super Juniors, but it ended up happening 19 days later.
And there's an ignominy to calling your shot and then losing. So there is some story going on, and Desperado's been playing into it now. Now that he's lost, that he's just like, man, I can win it, but I can't defend it. And again, it goes into that whole thing where I don't feel like a champion until I defend it. Hiromu mentioned something like that, like he wouldn't put the belt around his waist until he defended it once. That was just one of Hiromu's picadillos on the thing. So I have a feeling it's going to be another mountain to climb for Desperado with the story to tell. Okay, I won this thing. That's fine. I don't know whether he'll do a thing like I won't put it on or I won't, whatever it is. It's like the next mission for Desperado is climb the mountain again, win the damn belt, and hold it. And that is apparently the story that they're going with, because
you can win it, but can you keep it?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I don't think very many people saw this coming at all. I mean, there might be a couple people in hindsight they're going to tell you that they did, but they even had a very funny thing where Chris Charlton put a screenshot of his text or WhatsApp or whatever it was to Gino Gambino. And who, of course, named it the Doki Choki and has been, the big Doki supporter.
An advocate from day one.
And telling him he won. And Gambino could not believe it. Was absolutely flummoxed by the idea that Doki was the junior heavyweight champion. And I kind of was too, but I'm thrilled for him. And he looks so happy. The crowd was genuinely happy for him. It was a nice moment.
I mean, you and I have gone through this multiple times. The dude started doing birthday parties in Mexico, working like independents and, grinding the hard way, like working the trade the hard way, and him climbing and grinding all the way to winning the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. You watch his matches and you get why. Like, the dude is the hardest working, is like, people will say he's the hardest working dude in the room, best physique, all these kind of things. And it may be arguable, but people are still like, when they say who it is, they'll point at DOUKI, Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it was a good match. It was a damn good match. So I'm happy to see it again. If they want to go that direction, we can come back. Before that, we did have the home
match.
Yes, we also had a homecoming match here. So the story was, this was the LIJ homecoming. It was the Derby. They decided to just pair up 3-on-3, and this was Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi, and Bushi. So you had the two homeboys there, Naito and Bushi, who were in there in Adachi, with teaming with Shingo against Hiromu Takahashi, Yota Tsuji, and Titan. Now, the fascinating thing about this is it's the first time Naito and Hiromu Takahashi have been on opposite sides. All those times when they've wrestled each other in various places, it has happened. Of course, being in two different divisions helps: heavyweight, junior heavyweight, all that. But not even in any of these little preview tags have they ever crossed paths. And there were a few when LIJ faced LIJ, when there was going to be a big title match and things, but never got Hiromu versus Naito until just now. So we got this here, and this was the highlight of it, though, Jeremy, to me, was Shingo and Tsuji. They were fabulous with each other, and that was when after this was over with, that was kind of the one I wanted to see. But the draw was Hiromu and Naito, and they built to that. And they did do some of that, and what I saw was pretty good. Hiromu and Naito seemed like they were having fun in there. All of them seemed like they were having a good time. Mm-hmm. But to me, Shingo and Tsuji won me over. And late in the match, Naito and Hiromu were in with each other. He ended up hitting the Violencia, and then he went for the Destino, but Hiromu reversed the Destino into a time bomb in a cool little moment there. But like I said, a lot of fun. Everybody got their stuff in. Everybody worked hard, I thought, in this one. But it ended up with Naito having Hiromu and an inside cradle. As that happened, the 30-minute time limit expired. Nobody had to take the loss in this one. And they ended up with the LIJ fist bump in the middle of the ring. But just a fun match. Felt a little bit like an exhibition where everyone was going to show off a little bit. But made me want to see Naito and Hiromu, which we were going to get, damn pandemic. And now I want to see Shingo and Tsuji. But
I like the Easter egg of having Hiromu, Tsuji, and Titan, which was the Forbidden Door 0 Hour team, versus the other side, which is also the A block versus the B block. So Naito and Shingo are in the A block of the G1. So it's basically a block versus block, but also the exhibition. So there was like, having this specific combination was, checking off a number of boxes. So it's just kind of a special, thoughtful Easter egg for doing it this way. And I hope that they thought about that when they had the 0 hour. It's like, hey, would you rather have, Titan or Bushi? Let's do Titan. And then
there's something I meant to look up, by the way, and I guess I don't know the answer to this one, but I wonder if Hiromu ever wrestled Naito as a young lion. But I don't. They kept saying it was the first time, or if it was just the first time since Hiromu came back as a member of LIJ. But I have not heard that. But I do wonder if they ever crossed paths with Hiromu as a young lion. But I don't know the answer to that. But
I can find out real quick.
They made it sound. It's certainly since they came back that it's the first time they were across the ring from each other. So, yeah.
I'm going to look for you right now. But let's get to the next match. While
the match before that one up. We got to the qualifier finals for the G1 Climax. Now, this was Block B. We're going in reverse order here. So the match just before that 6-man tag was Taichi and Boltin Oleg. So what we had here was a 16-minute Boltin match that was excellent. And I tell you what, Taichi carried him to a great match here. Now, when I say carried, that's not to say that Boltin wasn't good and that Taichi had to drag him there. Boltin definitely did his part. But this was a Taichi-paced match. This was very much a Taichi performance bringing this guy along. And it was all Taichi early. It was Taichi being almost dismissive of Boltin. Boltin did manage to get the gut wrenches in. He got a few on. Taichi's a big guy for that. The height there makes those gut wrenches a little trickier. But the story was that Taichi was a step ahead of Boltin at each moment. He knew the next move. He was ahead in strikes. He was ahead with counters and all that. But suddenly, the power that Boltin possesses would rear its head, and he would hit a kamikaze, for instance. And he got a kamikaze. Taichi managed to escape a second one, and he got the stretch plum sunk in, that little neck twisting move there that Toshiaki Kawada made famous in Japan. Boltin managed to power out of that, and Taichi sold his ribs for the rest of the match. Like that first kamikaze had damaged his ribs. And Boltin kept trying to get the move, but Taichi would counter it. He would keeping that step ahead storyline going, but Boltin's offense would keep getting Taichi in the ribs. And finally, he managed just to muscle him up and hit an F5 that looked terrific, by the way, to the point that it was like, man, maybe that one should be his finisher, but I guess that's a little too cliche. And he followed it up with the kamikaze, and Boltin got the pinfall. So it was all sportsmanship after. They raised each other's hands. They hugged, all this kind of stuff. But Boltin is through into the G1, and really an excellent job by both men. But Taichi really carried this one across the finish line.
Yeah, both men deserve credit. We are seeing a youth movement. It's like you have seen one of these two matches in which, going through a veritable old guard of New Japan talent to get to this point. And so I'm not really sure what the future like for Oleg in this G1, but just being put in the G1, I feel like is an accomplishment and a status elevation for both of these guys. And so it's on them to be able to take the next leap during the G1. But if they do, there is so much in store for him and the next match we're going to
Yeah, and well, we also have a couple of comments here I want to get to. And Dunstan mentions that Bolton, I hope, finds the balance between Lesnar and Walter in terms of in ring. That'd be an interesting spot for him in there, like that little that halfway between Walter and Lesnar type of thing. That's a nice little niche if he can manage to wriggle his way in there.
The comp that I was talking with somebody when I tried to say reminded me of Batista was Angle. Like there's a bit of Kurt Angle in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Dunstan also says with Ishii doing a mini tour for a month in AEW, could Taichi do the same? It's worth mentioning that Taichi in post-match comments was having a flat-out existential crisis. I'm not aware of Taichi going anywhere, but he was playing up the sumo aspect of it. And what I mean by that is he was questioning his whole career path. Like he was saying, maybe I'm done. Maybe these young guys are too much for me. And, of course, Taichi's a monster sumo fan. He's incorporated sumo moves into his work. And when a grandmaster in sumo, a yokozuna, is no longer effective, they are expected to retire. So it's one of these things, Jeremy, where if you are, you can't be demoted from yokozuna. It's the only rank in sumo you can't be demoted from. But there is a cultural thing that if you are a yokozuna and you aren't in contention or winning tournaments, you're supposed to step away. You're not supposed to see Yokozuna with a losing record. So this had Taichi doing the whole thing of like, oh, man, maybe I just can't keep up with this generation. Maybe it's time to move on, which to me says that he's going to, reload, so to speak, kind of make another little run. I don't know about a mini tour, but I think he might be quiet for a little while and come back.
I don't see Taichi coming to the States too often. No. He may end up doing something with Noah or maybe doing a match there, but it's like
his gimmick doesn't really translate.
It's just like he's just kind of a New Japan guy, and he's never had a winning record in the G1. It makes sense, and these guys are getting older. They've been doing these G1s, they've been doing these matches, and it's like when they want to say, "Yeah, you're going to do 9 hardcore matches," they're like, "I'm good." It's like maybe this isn't. It's like we think of these guys as dogs and tough and just like you can go and go and go and go. But, you've seen Tanahashi start to break down. You've seen Ishii be traded to AEW in return for Takeshita. It's like that's basically what's happened at this point. It's like they're both being on loan with each other. Takeshita can go where Ishii can't. And it's a generational thing, and we are in a generational turnover.
And what we saw there, again, we mentioned last week, Taichi in his mid-40s, Ishii pushing into mid to late 40s, Tanahashi late 40s type of thing. So it is definitely a thing. And we mentioned that Yoshihashi, not a spring chicken, 42 years old, so he's in the next match here. Taichi Fuji, says Colin. I like that. Dunstan was asking if you had to pick Bolton's theme song. He needs one. Bolton needs a theme song. He's allegedly not a young lion anymore, but he dresses like one and comes out to the young lion music. What would his theme song be? That's a good question. Let's see. I have to think of something. I would think hard driving, wouldn't it?
Hard driving, heavy metal, a lot of bass. Just not melodic.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Yeah. And Venkin mentions Naito not the youngest either. No, and he's showing it. He's showing it. But he needs to
Speaking of a young guy.
Callum Newman and Yoshihashi was in the A block qualifying tournament final. And this match only went about 12 minutes. It was quick, but they also had a 30-minute draw to go. They had a 21-minute junior heavyweight title match. So we needed to get things rolling here a little bit. I'm just going to keep hitting that microphone the rest of the show there. Sorry about that.
You do what you got to do.
Both of them were selling their semifinal matches because they both took pretty good beatings in those. So they're selling the damage from those semifinal matches. Newman took a couple of shots with a cane and all that stuff. Yoshihashi took most of it late once they, like I said, it was only 12 minutes. So there wasn't like an incredibly long period of selling at all in this one. But as it came down the stretch, Yoshihashi was taking most of it. He was getting near falls. He was coming closer and closer to hitting the big karma move, which got him to here in the first place. That's what he beat Ishii with. Newman managed to turn karma into a stunner, and which looked really good right there, and then hit a victory roll to win. It was a good match. I thought Yoshihashi was pretty damn good in this tournament. He wrestled well against Ishii. He wrestled well here. But again, we have traded in a guy over 40 to a guy who's barely in his 20s, I think. Isn't it? Like Newman's pretty darn young. And afterwards, TJP, Great-O-Khan, Francesco Akira celebrated in the ring with him. TJP, again, behaving like a real leader here and a total babyface leader at that, while Akira and Okan were a little bit more subdued, especially Okan, who's going to be wrestling Newman at some point in this because they're in the same block. So Newman, totally on board. I like Newman a lot. I've been saying that a while, especially since he broke out of, I know he does the Os Cutter and all that, but instead of being a Will Ospreay tribute match, he has found his own footing in New Japan and is wrestling more like himself. I think he's going to have good matches in the G1. Don't think he's going to score very many points, but I think he's going to score a couple of very important ones.
Newman has one job in the G1, and
he really does. Yeah, and we will get to that. So don't expect a whole lot of wins, but expect a lot of good matches. And I think this is someone who is in a position to raise his stock as much or more than anybody in that one.
I've been a big fan of Callum Newman. I think he's got all the potential in the world. I like him as a prospect, and I think the confidence that they've shown in him at such an early age is going to be paying off at such that, like, in 3, 4, 5 years, he is going to be top of card kind of. If they track and everything goes right, this guy's special.
Yeah.
And, like, you can see it now. They call him the Prince of Pace. You know, like, they gave him a win over Yoshihashi. Yoshihashi is not the joke Yoshihashi that, you know, people may think of from a few years ago. He has been built as a legitimate wrestler and multi-tag team champion. This was a big deal win for Callum Newman. And, you know, he's got a couple of other big deal moments coming in the next few months. And I think it's not the last time that we'll be having Callum Newman as a controversial conversation. By the way, Naito and Hiromu never had a match.
Okay, there you go. Dunstan, do you think the presentation for Callum and Bolton will change in the G1? I would like to see it. I think it's time. I think it's time for Bolton to get music and gear. I think this would be a great time to do it and change that up a little bit. And I could see. I think Newman will probably look like Newman, but I don't know. I feel, Jeremy, it's time for him to break out of the Young Lion thing. Bolton.
That's bait. I can't do it this time.
Ospreay just said that Ospreay. Well, even if they don't, I know you're joking about it. Jeremy is going to predict that Bolton's going to turn heel and join Bullet Club until the day it happens, and then say he was right every time. But but I don't know. Maybe just some print on his trunks. Maybe some music. What
does he need? Honestly, black trunks and boots is all he needs. I don't know what.
Put a little design on it. Put something. How about some music?
You want to give him a singlet? Sure. You know, like you want to.
No, don't.
You want to do the whole like I rip off one shoulder and then the next shoulder, and
too derivative.
So keep him in the trunks.
No, I'm not saying don't put. How about put something on the trunks? Put his name on it. I don't know. A little design. Do
Oleg.
Kazakhstan. What is Kazakhstan? What's Kazakhstan shaped like? Put that on it. Look that on there.
I mean, eventually the Bullet Club logo is going on there.
No, jeez. Venkin also mentions Ospreay picked Newman, right? Yes, sure did. Yeah.
Put him in jeans and boots.
No, but Ospreay, Ospreay did pick Newman for United Empire. It's one of his.
Dustin had some questions at the top of the show that we should probably hit up now.
Yeah, it's a good time for him. He said, with DOUKI as champion, do you think he'll remain champion until the Dome? Not necessarily, no. That's a title that bounces around quite a bit. And they could, they could, but it also would not be out of character for New Japan to switch that title going into the Dome to somebody else. So that title, it's rare for that title to stick on someone for a long time.
There are only a couple of windows in which there is going to be a priority for that because it's going to be on ice until the end of the G1. So we're talking about middle of August. Then he's got Capital Collision, and then we got whatever shows that we got from September to October. But we're also going into the World Tag League and the Super Junior Tag League. Mm-hmm. So yes and no. There's going to be a limited opportunity for him to be having contenders over the next couple of days. He might have 2 or 3 matches, but I also don't expect DOUKI to lose that title immediately, especially because it would be starting to look like hot potatoing right after Desperado said. So I'm inclined to think that maybe he'll have it until the Dome. But if you had to like press me on it, I'm like 70-30.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say for sure that, oh yeah, this is going to stick for a while just because of what they do with those junior
I'm just
heavyweight
thinking of the
titles.
timetables and all that. They don't really have an opportunity to build a lot of programs. There's like a 3-month, 2.5-month window before you have to build for like Wrestle Kingdom. So that's the part of it that I'm just kind of like, how many matches are you able to build from here to there?
With Tana as president, do you think Zach's chances of winning the G1 and world title have increased? Probably so. Yeah, I think that having Tanahashi in there, I think they'd be high either way. I think they would be
I don't
high.
think it's irrelevant.
Well, with Tanahashi as president, I don't think it's ever irrelevant because I think he does have a lot of influence on that type of thing. But under this new regime, I think it's probably I think Zach's probably in a little bit better shape than he was before it. But he was going to be a big contender for the G1 regardless. It's clear that they have Zach's character really zeroed in on the G1. He's mentioning it on AEW interviews. He's mentioning it everywhere. So the story here is that Zach is definitely zeroed into it. I expect him to do very well in the G1. I think he was going to regardless. But I also think that Tanahashi loves Zach and loves wrestling Zach and loves working with Zach and is a guy that Tanahashi would be happy to see in a very prominent spot. So considering it's probably Tanahashi's best and favorite opponent right now, yeah, I don't think it hurts.
I feel like maybe it tipped the needle, but there's nothing that like anyone has to advocate for Zack Sabre Jr. He was
the needle straight up and down before it tipped?
Well, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. If Zack Sabre Jr. going to win the G1 and win the title,
maybe it tipped the scale.
Tanahashi is sitting there like,
It's one of my favorites.
I think we do it. It's possible that happens, but there's a lot of people in the group. You got Ghetto, you got Obari, you got all these people that are making these best business decisions. And it's like, there are a handful of people that you can main event in the Tokyo Dome right now that are on the New Japan roster. Yeah. If you have eyeballs, like, you know that Zack Sabre Jr. is among one of the top like choices. These are not stupid people that are running New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're making these decisions and they already they know the plans they're doing. So when I say with Tana as president, do you think that it's increased? Minimally. Like maybe yes. Maybe like somebody was on the fence and he was the guy that like tipped the needle and said, hey, no, yeah, we should do that. That's what I'm saying. But like other than that, it's like it's so clear to everybody everywhere that Zack Sabre Jr. is one of the people that you need to like focus the promotion around.
He tipped the needle and threaded the scale. So here we go with the next thing. All right, what was the next one right there? Oh, yeah, all right. So before this one, we had a 10-man tag match here. This was the House of Torture against the returning Ryusuke Taguchi back from his accident with Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tiger Mask, Honma, and Yuji Nagata. And Taguchi basically did his usual comedy bits over here. Narita ended up using the push-up bar on Honma, which allowed Evil to get the Everything is Evil and pin Honma. But in the comments afterwards, Taguchi just seemed happy to be back. Interesting bit there, Jeremy, I thought about that was Tiger Mask in his post-match comments talking about how he was in the Noge Dojo, which is about where the accident happened, and heard the ambulance and just thought, oh, there's been a traffic accident nearby. And then someone came and told him that was Taguchi that got pretty badly hurt. So yeah, ended up
hearing your friend went to the hospital. It's just that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so pretty rough day for everybody involved there because Taguchi was banged up pretty good and missed a significant amount of time. Mm-hmm. So glad he's back. But I mean, it was the match itself was nothing to speak of other than
we are at a point of the card where there's not much to talk about.
Yeah. But I did think that was an interesting point.
No, the Taguchi thing, but. You know, he did a couple of Nagata tribute spots in the match, and you know, a lot of narrative about House of Torture getting their comeuppance from Tana and the company, and they're not going to stand for it, and talk.
There you go.
A lot of talk about it.
And the first two matches were just straight up preview tags type of thing. Akira Great Okan and TJP beat Sanada, Taka Michinoku, and Yuya Uemura. Akira beat Taka, just like you'd figure. And in the beginning match, we had Kosei Fujita and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Gedo and Kenta in 6 minutes. So nothing really important out of those, but just straight up, just make sure the guys are seen by everyone and get a couple of babyface wins.
I watched this match on my phone, and the whole segment is 18 minutes, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, there's an opening program, and I'm like turning the dial on like the phone. I'm watching on my phone, and I'm like going down. I'm like, we are down to 10 minutes, 9 minutes, and then you get to like 9.5 minutes, and the match starts, and then you go through like, oh, this could be like a 7-minute match, and it can change with the 2 minutes of people leaving in the end. I'm like, wow, they really got 18 minutes out of that whole thing.
Yeah, Venkins and Gedo got pinned, right? Yeah, Gedo lost the match. Yeah, that's one. That's why he's there, and that's why
right?
Why he books him. Yeah, that's why he books himself, just so that he can protect everybody else that's in Bullet Club. He's happy to take the losses. He doesn't have to worry about being booked. He's booking. So there you go. And so he took the loss on that one. So that was the show from, and that was it until G1 now. I mean, we don't have any New Japan shows anyway. There's this Fantasticamania show that we're about to get into, but it seems strange to go that long, Jeremy, without a show in Japan at all. So a lot of the guys resting, taking care of hopefully those nagging injuries, so to speak, letting a few things rest. But some of the folks are going to be just down the road from you on Saturday.
Yeah, gonna get some barbecue and head over and watch a show with the doors open at 4:00 my time, and I'll be home by like 8:00. You know,
I can't watch this one live. I can't watch this one live. I got a
lovely evening of lucha at the local Mount Pleasant High School. I am telling you right now, we are gonna have a conversation about how shitty it looks at that. Like, it's gonna look so bad, you guys. Like, I don't like. This is not a state-of-the-art high school. This is an old-ass high school gym that all the local, like, Lucha Boom promotions do their weekend shows. And they get a lot of crowds, and it's a great place to do it. People know exactly where it is. But it's not going to look great on TV. Like, $20 for this, Twitter's going to fucking roast this.
Well, that's fine. I mean, this is where it comes in handy that New Japan's so bad at lighting an arena that it might help.
Yes. I bought $30 bleacher seats. I'm sitting in bleachers that is just off the basketball court kind of thing. I am so here for this, man.
Let's take a look at the card. You want to bring it up and we'll go through this? It. All right. So we have the Copa Fantastica, which is Adrian Quest and the DKC, who is contractually obligated to appear at all New Japan shows in the United States, apparently, against, I'm going to try to pronounce it, Kukui and Viento. So not totally familiar with Kukui and Viento, so I'm curious to see what we have with those guys. We know what we get from the DKC, and we've seen Adrian Quest before, so it'll be an opener, right? And it'll be an opener.
I'm kind of surprised we're not getting Matt Vandegrift.
Another guy who seems contractually obligated to be this. Well, it's not a strong show, is it? It's fantastic.
No, I guess not. But I really wanted to see him defend his like strong survivor against some like lucha dude. It would have been awesome.
Venkin mentioned something though. So the masks were pretty cool. The Kukui and Viento have pretty cool masks. He's right.
Guy.
He's right. Those dudes look good.
All right. That would look like, ooh, yeah.
Now we have a CMLL versus MLW. So we have the MLW World Tag Team Champions. That's Satoshi Kojima and Okamura from Japan there, the New Japan crew. Of course, Okamura is the guy that's been CMLL forever, really. So we have New Japan CMLL against Magnus and Ruhido for the MLW World Tag Team Championship.
Do you follow much MLW?
No. I only have so much time in the week, and MLW rarely makes it onto the list. Nothing against them, but I don't have a lot of time to watch them.
I feel like I know what this match is going to be, and I'm hoping somebody will correct me and that Magnus and Ruhido have some type of presence in MLW. Otherwise, like I'm just Magnus and Ruhido losing to Satoshi Kojima and Okamura for the MLW Tag Team Championship just seems like a weird match. You know, it's like I sure, could be fun, but
What?
the MLW thing is weird.
Kukui says, or Colin says, Kukui is really good. Kukui doesn't say he's really good. He might if he were here. I don't know. But Colin says that he's really good. He had a long tour with Marvelous recently. Okay, so there you go. A little bit of
This
experience.
is the one match, though, that I'm just like, are we going to be talking good things about this one afterwards? Or are we just be like, yeah.
Well, Magnus is pretty good. Ruhido's
Yes.
all right. And Okamura knows how to work Lucha because he's been doing it forever. So I think it'll be fine. And Kojima's going to be Kojima. And he's still pretty good.
I think it's just going to be fine, but I don't know if it's going to be able to keep up with the stuff that comes afterwards. It's just one of those, like, just
there's something to be
something
to be said for building.
Like, I don't know.
Something to be said for building the card too. So
I totally hear you, and there was something about this that just made me curious. That like MLW Tag Team Championship match, interesting. And I know that they're cultivating a relationship with MLW as well, CMLL and New Japan. It all made sense. It's all fine. The whole match itself just seemed like a weird mixed match, and I kind of did not want to see Magnus and Ruhido lose this match. Maybe they'll win it, but that's the part where I just feel very bearish on.
I feel it's very possible this discussion's already lasted longer than that match will. Next up is the CMLL World Women's Championship. So now, all right, so this is the one that got changed at the last second because Stephanie Vaquer was supposed to be in this match, but instead it is Viva Van is going to be in this one, taking her place against Willow Nightingale and Uvia. So we have the CMLL World Women's Championship on the line here. That was one of the belts Stephanie was carrying around. And I have I don't see Viva Van coming in just on short notice and winning it. Willow, perhaps, but Uvia is a CMLL regular and has become one of their top women when Stephanie's not around. So I think she would be the odds-on favorite with this one, but don't sleep on Willow. But this feels like a way to get the belt to Uvia when it was probably going to be a Stephanie Vaquer retention before all this happened.
Yeah, I feel like was Uvia the one that wrestled Mercedes Moné a couple weeks ago at AEW?
Maybe.
I'm looking it up right now.
Could be. Sounds right.
Nope, she was not. So if you did Uvia and Mercedes,
who was?
It was. Okay, perfect.
No, I'm saying who was my question.
It was her tag partner. And I don't remember what her name was. It was Vaquer's tag partner because she was also the tag team champion.
Right, yeah.
At CMLL, but I couldn't remember the name and I had to make sure it wasn't her.
Got it. Okay.
I feel like Uvia is the natural title winner because they've already done the Willow Nightingale program with Mercedes Moné. And if they are going to end up doing a program where Mercedes is going to challenge for that title as well, it needs to be somebody fresh. I would lean towards Uvia, but I would not be shocked if they decided that they wanted to put the title on Willow Nightingale because she is a capable performer and could probably draw crowds in Mexico.
Well, we'll see how it turns out. After that
the event is good, but I do not think that she is the one for this one.
All right. So after that one, we will have the TMDK team of Zack Sabre Jr. and Bad Dude Tito taking on Hechicero and Virus. This one should be really good. This is an interesting little clash of styles here in a good way. And another showcase for Zack. I'd imagine he'll probably be protected. But after that, I'm just looking forward to a fun match here with Tito, Hechicero, Virus, Zack. This will be nice. A lot of talent in this ring.
This could possibly be the best match on the card.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
There are a couple of contenders, like everything on this card going higher. I am here for in some way, shape, or form. But a huge fan of Bad Dude Tito, big teeth, and Hechicero, is making a name for himself, and they're gonna run it back. Zack Sabre Jr. and him after Hechicero beat him, at the CMLL show back in June 22nd. They'll run it back for Rev Pro, and I'm very interested in this match, as is the next match.
And the next one will be Yota Tsuji against Barbaro Cavernario. Now, this one I am really looking forward to. This is a lot of fun. And, of course, Tsuji did some of his excursion in CMLL. He's familiar with Cavernario. And Barbaro Cavernario is just a really talented guy, a lot of charisma, good wrestler. This will be an entertaining one-on-one for sure. I'm not sure that who wins, who loses is all that important, although I'd imagine the New Japan will probably try to protect Yota Tsuji here. But you know what? It matters more that it's entertaining than the winner and the loser.
We'll be having a great time with this match. I do think Yota Tsuji is going to be winning, going protected into the G1. There's really no reason to have Cavanario have to go over this match, but it is going to be a fantastic one and probably the singles match of the night.
Yeah, I don't anticipate a lot of G1 guys losing in the run-up to the tournament very often, unless the whole thing is an angle, and this one doesn't scream angle to me. But
I'm also not sure that the next match is going to match this the previous singles match in terms of skill between the both competitors and ability to go right now.
Well, it's interesting. So Ultimo Guerrero is still pretty good, but he's pretty old, and maybe not.
Won't be wearing a mask.
No, I don't know what that was, and neither did they. But it's Gabe Kidd defending the strong openweight championship against Ultimo Guerrero. So again, Guerrero is an excellent worker. He's a legend, and Kidd is on the come up for sure. And this will be entertaining, I'm sure. I am interested to see how Kidd works with him because Kidd's steamrolling style doesn't necessarily match Lucha. So I'm curious to see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gabe Kidd. I think that there is going to be a decimation factor. I think because it's the strong openweight championship, and he's gonna try and define himself. But I think Guerrero is a good match, good opponent. I think he'll know the assignment, and I think it may end up being better than the Okada match that Guerrero had in the States.
Okay. Next up. So you want to talk about talent in the match. Here we go.
Yo.
DOUKI and Mistico as a team, my goodness, against Volador Jr. and Rocky Romero. Now, Volador and Rocky as a team is interesting. This was the hottest feud in Mexico about 18 months ago or so. And these two really went to war, and now they are teaming up here. And, of course, it says, Parejas Increíble. So that is a traditional lucha libre trope where you take two guys who do not like each other and team them up. Although I don't think DOUKI has any issue with Mistico, so to speak. They aren't regular tag team partners is the point. Volador and Rocky flat out have a history of hating one another, and it was a big deal. They had some terrific matches in Arena Mexico. So seeing them as a team should be intriguing, and I think perhaps a properly timed malfunction. Right? A properly timed malfunction at the junction could lead to a DOUKI Mistico win. What was that?
Volador and Rocky like come to terms? I thought they shook at one point in a New Japan show. Yeah, I mean there's been twists and turns in the whole thing. They're not blood amigos anymore. Yeah, they're not buddies. They ain't buddies. I feel like this is like fantastic partners kind of thing, like what you're saying. But I think it's kind of a little bit of a spin on it. It's like everyone's cool with each other on either side. It's just teams you didn't expect to see kind of thing. And so I was like, oh, DOUKI's going to have a nice little main event spot after he loses his junior heavyweight championship match. Nope.
No, he's walking in with the belt.
Walking in. The champ is here. And that's kind of good because otherwise you were going to have a show in which one of the top champions or the top championship wasn't even being represented. So smart booking maneuver. And I will be there live with a couple friends, and we're not doing a post show for this one unless something so staggeringly amazing and or noteworthy, and I'm going to go solo on that if we need to, but I don't think that's happening. We're probably just going to show up next Thursday with a report of everything that happened.
So we have about a half an hour left. We can talk a little bit of G1 here if you want to, Jeremy. By the way, enjoy the action, everybody, of course. Yeah. That'll be on NJPW World pay-per-view. That's available through that. But I think it's going to be one of those deals, Jeremy, where you have to go to your computer to order it and then back to
web
whatever
browser
device to watch
or the Twitter link and then put in your account, do the whole deal. It's cumbersome, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, come on.
Yes, indeed. So we have, so G1 Climax. Now that we have another big show planned next week for it that we're hoping to make a really big show. So make sure you tune in. We're finalizing things. Can't announce anything yet, but we have a feeling that it's going to be a really strong episode of.
Yeah, I feel like people will not regret making time for our show next week.
Yeah, I think that's a solid thought. So with that in mind, we are taking a look at the G1 Climax tournament here, and we will again, like I said, next week. But some preliminary thoughts here. I feel like, Jeremy, that I had a pretty good line on the A block and what I think is going to happen and how it's going to roll. And then I started putting together my little fantasy booking thing where I thought, okay, I'm going to book this out. And I think I got something good for A. And B, I foobarred. When it was done, I was just like, okay, that one's he's probably going to win that one. He's probably going to win that. And I totaled up the points at the end, and I just thought, nope, that ain't going to be how it happened. So I'm a little mystified on B. I need to go back and really break down the B block a little bit here. But how are you feeling about your fantasy brackets on this? What's your confidence level? Because I feel like A is fairly wide open, but I think I know who's going to go through. I don't know. How are you feeling about
it? I said at the beginning of the show that I started a couple days ago, and I basically picked up an iPad, took a screenshot, and I started writing in numbers and who'd win here or there, and doing the numbers and just kind of going back and forth. And doing it on that was actually really easy, and it just made things like all of a sudden you can start seeing things. I came to the conclusion that I'm fairly certain on my top three on both the A block and the B block. Have you kind of come to a decision on your top three on both, or no?
Yes, with a small caveat. I think I got it down to 7 guys for the 6 spots, and I'm trying to really pare it down to 6.
I'm pretty sure I got the 6. I'm pretty happy with what I've got. So the A block, I'm going to go with Naito. I'm going to go with Zack Sabre Jr. And I'm going to go with Jake Lee.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that Jake Lee is going to especially squeak by Shingo, Evil, and Sonata, who all three of them bottleneck at around 10 for whatever reason. And then you've got a handful of guys underneath that end up with 6 or less. And I think it feels right. It feels just kind of whatever. And there is a situation there where they want to make Naito look strong. Last year in the G1, Sonata did not lose in block play. And I think there's probably going to be something very similar, but it's going to be, as a result, it's 9 matches instead of 6 kind of thing. Who do I think wins the block? I think that Sabre Jr. Wins the block. And I think Naito ends up having to fight his way through Jake Lee. Jake Lee and him had that match back at All Together. They're going to have a match in block play. I think Naito's going to have his number until he ends up meeting him in block play. And then that's going to be the time that Jake Lee finally gets, the thing against him, kicking Naito out. Then you got Jake Lee and Zack Sabre Jr. as your semifinals on the A block, and I think you're going to end up having Zack Sabre Jr. squeak on through. I think you're going to have a couple of draws in there in order to have Zack Sabre Jr. and Naito both look strong, but it be a race to the very end of who is going to have more points at the very end, and that's going to be the big dramas: who wins and who has to fight their way out of the rest of the block. And when it comes to B block, it's like the more I think about it, it's Yota Tsuji, it's David Finlay, and it's Konosuke Takeshita.
Yeah. And I have the same 3 in that. I have the same 3. I do have Hanare very much in contention until the last day. I think Hanare is going to actually have a pretty strong tournament. There's a couple of key things here. By the way, in A block, I want to mention A block real quick. The only fly in the ointment for me here is I still feel like Shingo's going to get a good run here. And I have no doubt that he'll be in contention the last day. I'm not ruling him out of making the playoffs and having it be Lee that trips at the end and Shingo slipping in. It's not. I'm kind of leaning toward what you're saying. I understand about the Jake Lee thing, but that's what I'm torn on, because I think Shingo is actually going to get a bit of a push. If Shingo and Zach were not in the same damn block, I would feel a lot better about Shingo moving on. But I just think they're running out of room over there.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think the finals are actually going to be Yota Tsuji versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the right to face Naito at the Wrestle Kingdom. I think that is the most dramatic. People don't know either way who's going to win that match kind of thing. And, you know, if Yoda ends up beating David Finlay, you've got a global title match totally set up for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have Takeshita beat Yota Tsuji in block play, and then you have Yota Tsuji beat him in the post block play to get that, to close that loop. Then you have Yota Tsuji face David Finlay, and then you have him beat David Finlay, and then you end up with Zack Sabre Jr. and Yota Tsuji versus for the right to face it. It just feels right.
Yeah.
And so there is a part of me that thinks that you kind of have to remove Shingo from the equation of post block play. Otherwise, you could do the Shingo versus Yoda tease, but I feel like there's more to the story of Jake Lee, because it takes back to the story of Naito doesn't win the block because all of the ghost of his past haunt him. You know, like he loses to Jake Lee in post block play. Something happened to the Callum Newman match and he doesn't get 2 points. You know, that kind of thing. When he
Sonata's a tripwire for him.
Is an easy layup for a win after 3 losses against Naito throughout the year.
And don't forget, we have the Chaos Goblin in this one. I mentioned the Chaos Goblin Kid. Not so much Kid, but again, if you're talking about ghosts of his past, he's got to wrestle evil. And you always have the House of Torture shenanigans as part of that. So that's the other side of it here, Jeremy. The other thing that I think there's a scenario where it's Naito that trips over the finish line and doesn't make post block play.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's like he gets cocky and something just happens. I don't think it's that he loses, but I think that, like, we're talking about a 1 point difference that he loses out. It's not like it's not even a tiebreaker. A tiebreaker is like not even. Like he robbed robbed himself, but like we're talking like a 15-14 kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an unholy mess on the final day in the A block. I think there's going to be like most of that block's going to be in contention that last day.
I mapped it out and I came to a scenario where Zack Sabre Jr. has 15, but he's chasing Naito the entire time. Naito has 14 at the end, and then Jake Lee has 12. And then Sonata, Shingo, and Evil all end up with 10. You know, at least Shota Umino completely fucked. Like totally fucked. But I don't line up for him. I don't feel good about Shota Umino in this tournament.
Yeah, I don't either. It just doesn't. I mean, we might be wrong, but this doesn't feel like the year just with everything else that's going on in this block. If he were in B block, I think he might be, in the playoffs for sure. But it's in this one, I don't know. And I'm looking at the other thing. Larry has a question that plays into this. He said, "Weird question, but no, it's not. It's a part of the story of the G1. Who are the guys that will either get 1 or 2 wins max, or maybe not at all?"
Callum Newman.
I got another one that pains me. Like a couple. I looked through the B block so many times. I can't find a whole lot of points for Hiroki Goto.
I think 2 wins. I think 2.
Yeah, 4 points. I
think 2 to 6 is 2 to 3 wins for him is kind of where I'm kind of
same for Uemura. I don't see Uemura again. Although I can see one. The one thing that screams out time limit draw. If there's going to be a time limit draw in every G1, the one that's there are not always, by the way. But if there is one, my theory on this is it's going to happen on a night when there are 5 block matches and not 10, because that's a lot to do in one night and do a 30-minute draw. But Uemura and Tsuji, because the history of those two going to draw after draw after draw. If Tsuji needs it to win the block or something like that, or to get that bye, and Uemura, is the guy that keeps him from 1 point away, that could go to a 30-minute draw just because those two seem destined to torture one another.
So if there was a guy in the B block to hand David Finlay a loss, who would be the guy to hand him a loss?
Well, the one that screams out of me is that he's wrestling El Phantasmo on the final night of block play. And to me, that just shouts out that he's going to talk about somebody who's running into one of their biggest ghosts. The last day of block play is when David Finlay's going to wrestle El Phantasmo. That screams out to me like something like that. Now, there are champions all over this tournament. We've got a lot of belts where, but the two that they like to protect, they're the two that I think they want to protect. I guess it hasn't been around long enough to know it. I think they're going to protect the never champion. So I think Henare is going to do well, but lose a few to set up title matches, and Finlay's global title. I don't think they're terribly concerned about the TV title. They've shown in the past they're not concerned about King of Pro Wrestling. With that in mind, I think that Finlay is going to have that Phantasmo thing to set up a title match. And just looking at the list, I could see, like you said, Tsuji getting him, but maybe that'd be in post block play. And the only other one I can think of right here is they might, could be Takeshita. He might be Takeshita. I mean, you can't count out Cobb either. So, but Cobb's busy with the TV.
Cobb already has a belt, so I am taking away anyone who already has a belt.
I wouldn't do that.
They could do that. You could do Oleg Bolton as being the guy to get one over on Finlay. Like that could be a big win.
Yeah, that could be. I could also see Bolton getting Cobb and getting a TV title shot coming out of it.
I think bad things are going to happen for El Phantasmo against that Finlay match. As much as we think that this is going to be a moment in which there is a triumph, I just don't see that currently as in his arc, if that makes any sense. I think it could be the consolation thing where he's not. I don't think he's going to be a contention on the last day, except he can do something to mess up Finlay's plan. I think Finlay, maybe. There's a part of me that thinks that Finlay is winning the block, and then Takeshita and Tsuji have to fight it out, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to win the block and lose on the last night.
Well, no, I don't think Finlay. I think the possibility is Finlay gets tripped up on the last hurdle. Takeshita wins the block. And then it ends up being Tsuji and Takeshita, so that Tsuji wrestles Takeshita, Tsuji gets the win there, and then he beats Finlay to get to Zach. That's my thought.
I would be very surprised if Takeshita win the block. And that's only because it feels politically that just getting him into the post-block play is about all that they want to do to appease like a rival partner. Like you don't have to do anything beyond that. So I'm just if it were me, I would put the stock in Finlay to make sure that he looks strong if he's going to lose immediately afterwards, and just give Takeshita the clout of making it into post-block play at the G1.
So you think that they are going to treat Jake Lee significantly differently than they treated Kato Kiyomiya last year?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Maybe.
Here, it's a different scenario. You still had Okada. You still had all these things. The only programs that are worth a damn are with Naito. And if Jake Lee is going to stick around,
that is true.
You need to cultivate the Naito like angles. And just like with Hiroshi Tanahashi this last year, there's only so much blood left in that stone to squeeze. Like once we get to Wrestle Kingdom this year, the downshift on Naito and the main event and being able to count on him as the guys, like they have to go in a different direction. Like even if Naito wins that night and, there's a guy on the come up right afterwards, it's only a matter of time. By this time next year, we're going to be talking about a different IWGP champion. It's just the fact of the matter. So there's a number of things in here that like I'm looking at. I think that Henare and Jeff Cobb is a very crucial match for Jeff Cobb that may end up costing him a block opportunity. I think Henare beating Jeff Cobb is completely on the table, given that Jeff Cobb is a 15-minute champion and Henare is known to go like 40 minutes in some of his matches. So if the story is that, this match goes 20 minutes or more, it really goes in Henare's favor, definitely on the table. And then you have some kind of rivalry there. If you had to pick between Hiroki Goto and Ren Narita as a potential never open weight feud for Henare after the G1 is over, what would you pick?
I wouldn't pick either one of them, but that's I don't see either one of them coming out of it with that.
Because I'm trying to look at who are the matches are near the tail end that could potentially cost Hinare, and Ren is something like the 10th, and Hiroki Goto is the 14th. And I actually do see a Hiroki Goto versus Hinare never openweight title match. That's not completely outside of the realm of possibility.
It's not, because it would be one that Hinare could win, and that might be important to Hinare. That would be, he could get a win over Goto, so that's possible.
Yeah,
but Narita is going to beat somebody that he shouldn't, because that's the whole idea of House of Torture. Same thing with Evil and all that. So of the two, I would think Narita, just because you would have everybody behind Hinare there for a total babyface heel dynamic. You could, but Goto is but either one of those are title matches that Hinare could win. With Finlay, like I said, I could see Tsuji coming out of it with the consolation prize. He doesn't get the G1. He comes close, maybe. That's not to say he's not going to beat Zach, by the way. Tsuji could. I mean, you could do the LIJ thing. Yeah, that absolutely could.
And that's the drama of it all. Like, it would probably upset a lot of people either way. If you do that match, no one's going to be happy. It's like there are going to be people that are going to want the Yota Tsuji match. There are going to be people that want the Zack Sabre Jr. match. That's the beauty of that main event. Is it can work either way.
There's just more. B is a little crazier because you have consequences from B that will affect the global title, that will affect the Never title. And A doesn't really have, the only other champion in A is really the King of Pro Wrestling title, which doesn't really have, that's not really a G1 thing. You know what I mean? They don't really say, they could, but I mean, it's not really a thing where we have to protect the King of Pro Wrestling because Yano was the King of Pro Wrestling. So they didn't protect Yano in this thing right there. And a USVA guy says, my sleeper, there's Yuya. Looking at this, you could find a lot of matches that Yue Uemura could win or lose.
Squeak on through. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, by the way, we talked about Callum Newman maybe only getting a win or two and all this. I could see 6 or 8 points for Bolton in this. I mean, I really think I don't think he's going to go over. I mean, I definitely don't think he's going to go over, but I could see him being middle of the pack, not making postseason play, but being in there with a very respectable 6 or 8 points. And that could be a big
I think Bolton Oleg and David Finlay right at the beginning of August, near the tail end of the tournament, is very interesting. Yeah. It's one of those matches that Bolton Oleg is not going to win a whole lot of matches starting out the gate. They're going to be the veteran maneuvers, and there might be a guy here or there. I think maybe his first match that he wins is El Fantasmo. That feels kind of,
I don't know.
He could beat Red Narita, but I also think that Red Narita could also goblin him.
I don't have the board in front of me at the moment. Well, who's his first match with Bolton?
Red Narita.
Yeah, see, I think he could win that one. I think he could win that one. Yeah.
But he could also lose it. That's what I'm saying. It's
no, that's true of any Narita match.
It's like the goblin of this, and then he faces Hinare. Then he goes on to face Hiroki Goto. Then it's El Fantasmo. Then it's Yota Tsuji.
Then
it's David Finlay. So there's this you can go either way kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's going to be a few matches before he gets one under his belt, and it's like he figures it out, but it's too late for him to win the tournament, kind of thing.
Well, Venkin's saying Ren Reed is going to use the push-up bar. Oh yeah, he is. I think probably he's going to at least try to in just about every match, and there's going to be all kinds of stuff with Dick Togo on the outside and blah blah blah. But the other thing I noticed here, Jeremy, but if you look at the G1 schedule, Naito has Shingo, Zach, and Jake Lee 1, 2, 3 right out of the gate. And so most of the really interesting Naito matches are front loaded into the tournament. And then he's just kind of in with former LIJ members that we've seen before. Not saying that it won't play a part in the story of this one. You mentioned his past ghosts, but we've seen him against Evil. We've seen him against Sonata to the point that we were never again at one point. We were like, I don't want to see this anymore. And then, until he gets to Newman again, it's kind of, the intrigue for Naito is early in this tournament, and then doesn't really pop up too much again until late. But if you're Naito, you're going to the front office saying, "What the hell? I got to Shingo, Zach, and Jake
I'm
Lee.
just going
and
on a run,
Tetsuya.
man.
Yeah,
He is gonna. I am gonna say it now that Naito's gonna have the hooker by crook wins. You know, like he's gonna have the tricky win. He's gonna have the feet on the rope, or he's gonna do the little tricks and the little Naitoisms to get out of matches. There are going to be like a few of these that are legitimate, just like he's going hard for like 30 minutes. But I expect Naito to win or not, at least not lose a ton of matches. Yeah. And as a result of that, you are going to have to come up with creative ways for him to outfox his opponents rather than straight up winning them. Because that is the Naito way. This is not, I out-wrestle you in every single match. That's not what Naito does. He's clever. The way the matches are booked are, outfoxes you. And I feel like we're going to get a lot of that. We're just going to get a lot of, I don't want to say smoke and mirrors, but we're not going to get work rate matches across the board with Naito.
No, I don't think he's capable of doing that anymore. And I don't think his body will let him. So yeah, I think that's
But he's got to be like top 3 in the block. It's just top 2, basically.
I don't know.
He's the IWGP champion, man. They still got to book that belt as if it's the most important thing in the world. And if you have it, it's like that's your bulletproof vest against winning or losing some of these matches. He's going to have one of the highest point totals.
I still kind of think he's going to lose to Shingo in the first match. I think that might be because the other part of this is what contender, what guy that's going to go to post block play or be in it is going to have the uphill battle early. And considering that early run, I could absolutely see Naito being the guy that is just like, oh crap, he's really
Dak is the guy with who's behind the 8 ball. He loses to Great O'Connell on the first night.
Maybe. I don't know.
I could totally see Zach losing to Great O'Connell on the first night and him being like in the hole trying to chase Naito the entire time. And it's not until like something else happens and like he's on an like okay, here we go. I think Zack Sabre Jr. loses to Great O'Con. He draws with Naito, and then he's chasing Naito the entire time until Naito loses to Sonata, and then Naito draws with Callum Newman or count out or whatever, and then we get a situation where Zack Sabre Jr. beats Naito by 1 point by the end of the tournament. That's kind of how I mapped it out in my head, and like they could obviously go in 200 different directions. But if you want to do Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Kingdom, you don't want a definitive winner at the beginning, or at least you don't want Zack beating Naito now if that's going to be the match that you're going to. So you want to put it off. And if you're putting it off, you also don't want to do it in post-block play. So you want to keep them away from each other in post-block play. So you have to have Naito have to fight his way out of it and face the bye. But if he loses, all of a sudden you have kept Zack Sabre Jr. and Tetsuya Naito away from each other for 6 months for an IWGP title match. And the only time they faced each other, the match result was inconclusive. That's kind of, I feel like that's the best and like way that you could do it in my mind, but you can do it in so many different ways. But that's kind of how I've mapped her out my block layout for the B block.
Well,
or the A block. Sorry.
We'll be taking a look at it more. We're going to explore more of this next week, hopefully with some guests. And if not, we'll just continue to break things down here. But feel pretty good that we're going to have some interesting things to show you next week here on the show. So
we've been watching these shows for so long, so our insight between you and me, we're on to some stuff. It's like you're definitely tracking stuff. I'm definitely tracking stuff. We're going to be having a great time following the G1 all the way through.
It starts July 20th, and it starts in Osaka at Edion Arena. 2 big cards to open the G1 Climax tournament. Both of those 2 cards at Edion Arena are 10 tournament matches. So we're going to be getting the entire thing those days. And then for a significant portion of the tournament is either A or B block with preview tags underneath. So that's the format this year as go through July and August. So we will be taking a look at that next week. We'll be talking about Fantasticamania and breaking down that card as well. So make sure you join us here next week. Make sure you join Power Bombshells Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Dynamite Show on Wednesday. Check out all the podcasts. Like I said, 5-Star Joshi. It's a very busy time. Check out Paul's show. There's a lot of great stuff coming up here. It's impossible to keep track of all of it on your own, but Fight Game Media can help you do so with all of our recap shows. The wrap is coming up, for the goodness sakes. We just had Money in the Bank. It's an exciting time.
I'm excited for G1. I'm excited for all the extra stuff that the Fight Game Media is doing. I'm excited for my G1 mustache that I will not touch for the next 6 weeks. As we
is this like a playoff mustache in hockey?
Playoff mustache, baby. I'll shave the rest of this and keep the stubble going, but this sweet mustache that I grew, my wife's gonna hate it.
Larry Sternstein says this was good and helpful. Thanks, Larry. I appreciate that.
Larry.
And I'm glad you were here for it. I hope we helped, and we'll have more next week. And Colin says, don't forget the Bash Show starts on Sunday. Exactly, the Nagoya Bash Show. Sumo starting up again. Onosato's back. So hopefully the Yokozuna, Teruya, Fuji, and we can see all those guys, Takeru Fuji, and the whole crew back. That's what I'm moving for.
Conway, I'm bringing the goodbye screen on you, all right?
All right. For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. Thank you for spending your time with us here on Speaking of Strong Style, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.